Welcome, one and all, to the second episode of the Caesar and Sloth Metal Podcast. I'm your host, Caesar, in the Caesar and Sloth, or Justin, for my real name. And then my co-host, Neil, the Sloth himself.
Hello again.
And you guys know what we do. If you heard the first episode, we take you through some metal albums we enjoyed or just want to talk about for one half of the month. This will be the first half of November, and maybe some stragglers from the end of October episode. So, and then I'm going to take you on a discography run of, as you saw in the title, a power metal / heavy metal / all kinds of things.
Some folk in there.
Yeah, lots of folk, all kinds of subgenres. Band Orden Ogan. So stick around in the second half of the episode for that. But to kick things off, Neil, why don't you tell us about something you've been enjoying that came out recently?
Sure. Yeah. Actually, I'll pick up on what you laid down there on Stragglers first. Came out at the beginning of October. Is a album from We Lost the Sea. They are a post-rock band or post-metal band from Australia, from Sydney. It's called Triumph and Disaster, and it's amazing. I think it's fucking great.
You gave me the background on this band just a few minutes ago, actually. So for anyone who doesn't know, like what's the story with this band?
Okay, so they started off as maybe your kind of standard fare post-metal band. You might say they sound like shit. Who would they sound like back then?
I don't know. Like his vocal style was almost more of like a hardcore raspy.
Yeah.
It wasn't like extreme metal like death metal or black metal. It was a little less, more like a core.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
Post-hardcore.
Yeah.
But anyways, so they used to have a singer. And I say used to because they no longer do. And they are now an instrumental post-rock band. With very long songs, by the way. Very, very long songs. That's kind of what sets them apart in this niche, I suppose. They didn't decide to not have a singer. Their singer just didn't leave for no reason. He actually took his own life in 2004 or something like that. It's actually on here on Spotify.
I didn't think it was that long ago.
Oh no, 2013. Shit, yeah, it was way different.
But he was only 24. It says.
Yeah. So yeah,
that sucks.
That drastically changed the sound of this band. So, I wouldn't blame anybody if they weren't able to kind of go with the flow on this one. You know, having a singer before and then not choosing to not have a singer, not have a replacement singer. For that kind of situation, you know, if that was something you really liked about the band, and now he's gone, then hey, that is what it is.
And like I said to you earlier, you know, one of the bands that I think is the best at creating a depressive atmosphere is Bell Witch. And I told you for the song you were showing me earlier, I'm like, this doesn't sound like Bell Witch, but it actually gives me like the same overall feeling from just listening to it. It's very, very depressing, but in a good way. Like, you can tell there's a lot of depression with the people who wrote this stuff.
Absolutely. It is, and that's probably why I like it a whole lot, to be honest, is it's very emotive. There's just tons. There's just, even though there's no actual vocals, it's just seeping with feeling. It's crazy. I really, really enjoy it for that. But yeah, this latest album is their second album of now being an instrumental band. Their first one was very interesting for them because it was a whole album about loss. And it wasn't just the loss of their actual singer. They didn't want to like try to convey that personal message. They actually just wrote a song or a whole album about songs that were about tragedy all around the world. There's one of the Challenger explosion, which is a U.S. spacecraft that exploded at one point in time. It was really kind of a big hit to the country overall. And then there's one of a diver that got trapped underwater, like doing like cave diving or whatever, and then he had to sit there and his oxygen was running out and there's no way he could get out. So that song kind of feels claustrophobic in that way.
That sounds terrifying. I was gonna say, what would you say to someone who asks you, how can you write a song about something if there's no lyrics?
Yeah, I mean,
because obviously you name it something. The song's about the Challenger,
yeah,
or named as such. But like you were explaining about the Challenger song, because that was a two-parter. It was like it gets, it's supposed to convey like the feeling of watching it up until the point when it exploded. So maybe it's like the soundtrack to that, essentially.
Yeah. And they do their best on trying to bring you through the emotions and kind of build the song up to a point or whatever. And honestly, I think they do it pretty damn well. And there's a lot of people in this genre right now, so it kind of sets them apart for me. I really, this album specifically kind of grows and it kind of matures in the instrumental sound quite a bit. Their first attempt at it was great. It was, I love that album. That's pretty much the album that got this band on my radar. But this is definitely a maturing step in that sound. And I feel like they're kind of able to really even explore even further in some of the sounds, because the album is way more diverse than the last one, sonically speaking. There's like a cool kind of jazzy part in the third track that has like these drum hits and drags, and I fucking love it. But yeah, it's instrumental post-rock that's very kind of sprawling and progressive. That has a very, very long song tracks, so it really kind of takes a long time to get to a point. So if you like that kind of sound, you'll probably like this album.
Sounds dope. And I know that I didn't really grab to it the first time that I listened to it, because you sent this to me, and for whatever reason it didn't really click with me that day, but I was enjoying it a little more just now when we were listening to them.
Yeah, it's, as we were talking about, I mean, it takes a certain mindset to like get into a certain sound. It's not always gonna hit you the way it should or whatever. And sometimes you just need to be chilling out in your fucking house doing fuck all and just stoned or whatever,
Yeah. So, is that all you got to say about
Yeah,
about
We
those
Lost the
guys?
Sea.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you like post rock, go check it out.
Nice. So, this is a new band that I had never heard before. They're called Silver Tomb. They just released an album called Edge of Existence. And I've been through it a couple of times. It's pretty interesting. I just went to Encyclopedia Mentalum and just looked at what's come out and just picked up something that I thought sounded interesting, because this band was labeled as heavy/doom metal. And I'm like, well, that could be interesting. And it's pretty accurate description for the vast majority of this album. But they do move on to some other sounds towards the end. And I would say they lean probably a little more towards the heavy metal side. But overall, it's not going to win like album of the month for me or anything. But it was a very interesting sound. Something I hadn't really heard done with, mixing those two subgenres. And I'm sure there's been plenty of bands who have done that. But I'm not, super well versed in doom metal yet. Still one of the subgenres that I'm trying to branch out and explore. And I think this was kind of an album that would possibly help someone do that if they're trying to do the same thing.
Sure.
Because is some really good tracks on this on this album. I recommend that you check it out if that sounds like something that would interest you.
Oh yeah. So it's not death doom, but it's like heavy metal doom?
Yeah. It's like there's a couple of songs that use what I would definitely consider to be like a heavy metal riff, but they slow it down and play it like at the speed of doom, basically.
At the speed of like one note per, fucking half minute.
And then they use mostly like heavy metal vocals.
Interesting.
Yeah. I believe there's actually two members of the band sing. I could be wrong. I would have to fact check myself on that. But I believe that was the case when I looked at this. So, yeah. I thought it was pretty good.
Nice.
I think you ought to check it out. I don't think I sent that one to you.
You did not. I have heard not 1 second of this album, so I have no idea what my actual opinion is of it. But that sounds very interesting indeed.
So what's next up on the radar? On the
a contested band between your hosts, I suppose, is an album that is being given much praise throughout everything I could find. Literally everything I could find.
everywhere I've seen too.
It's an album called Veil of Imagination by the band Wilderun. They are an American folk metal band. And I'm not mistaking that they are an American folk metal band. There are not a whole lot of those to go around.
Not really.
And I actually had the pleasure of seeing these guys. They were on tour with a band called Aether Realm, who is another American folk metal band. And they're also fucking great. Their last album was Tarot I think it might have been from 2017. I can't remember now, but it's a great album as well. You should go check it out. And I think mainly this album and this whole band revolves around one main songwriter who's like the lead vocalist and guitar player. That's kind of what I got out of it. I might be wrong. But their last album was called Sleep at Edge of the Earth, and it was more folky than this album. Definitely more folky than this album. This album leans more... They definitely have a Opeth influence to them. 100%.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, and there's no secret to that. Like, if you look into the history of the band, like, it's a pretty... They're not hiding it. You know, they're not trying to take it to sound for their own. It's just what it is. It's progressive death
It's
metal.
Opeth taken to, like, extreme, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's got a folk tinge on it. But this album, holy shit. Sleep at Edge of the Earth, I feel, was a good to great album, and this is definitely a great album for me. It kind of has every facet of a progressive death metal band that I love to see, and with the extra added folkness to it. Although that is, again, toned down on this album a little bit. They take you from every soundscape you can think of. I mean, if you're an Opeth fan, it's going to be very similar to Ghost Reveries, or maybe not even Ghost Reveries. Maybe Still Life is better, or maybe even Blackwater Park, because Ghost Reveries is when they started to kind of bring some organ in and stuff like that. But it's not uncommon to get blasted with death metal vocals and real heavy fucking guitar, and real heavy drums, and then go straight into like a clean, extremely clean vocals, clean guitar, acoustic. Sounds like you're walking on the fucking coast of Ireland or some goddamn shit, or I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's an accurate way to put that. And I think this is what I said earlier as to why I can't really get into this, is that it's a little too jarring for me. We just go from one very extreme to another immediately and without any real transition. And I've told you that normally that's okay with me if we end up back in, wherever we started. So, like, we can have some real heavy death metal part go into something much calmer and cleaner, like you said. But if it makes its way back to the death metal, but there's no like one bass sound for this band, really.
There is not.
And I can see how people would like that. It just doesn't work for me. Like,
for sure.
I don't know. I feel like I'm wrong for disliking it, because I recognize the talent, but
right.
To me, requiring talent to play it doesn't make it good.
Good. Right. Exactly. And that's a different thing altogether. Is like, hey, I recognize the mastercraft in this
Yeah.
but it's just not my sound.
There's a lot of wanky tech death bands that are extremely talented at their instruments, and they're not good songwriters.
Yeah, there do exist many of those.
Yep.
Holy shit, do there?
In Fairy.
No, anyways.
Beyond Creation.
Not. Whoa. We're gonna stop there right there. You were good with the first one. We're gonna stop on the second one. We won't get into that, sir.
That's a topic for another day.
That is true. But yeah, you're right. And to that note, though, is that both Sleep at Edge of the Earth and this album they're concept albums. So they do not beginning and end on a song or whatever. The songs string together. There is no logical end a lot of the times. There's no, like, once a riff ends, there's no guarantee it's coming back. It might. There might be a reprisal. There might not. It's just, this whole album is not built around that typical song structure that you find with a lot of bands or whatever. It's a concept album. So, and so is the last one. So that, I guess, because I have history with the band, it's maybe that's not a big leap for me, you know.
Yeah.
And that last album was fucking amazing. So, and even like I said, the actual Angry Metal guy that does the reviews on Angry Metal Guy loved this album, and he liked the last one as well, like a lot. I think he scored it a 4.5 out of 5. He scored this one a 5 out of 5. So, huge fan, and pretty much everything he said about it, I agreed with.
See, like I said, everyone likes this except for me, obviously, so.
I mean, I feel like there is definitely a mid-album lull if you really want to hear kind of some high-energy stuff. That's not, that part of the album isn't going to really hit you as hard because it really is kind of a mood-building section, but it's like a long mood-building section. It's not just a couple minutes. It's 10 minutes. So I think it starts off real strong, and then it kind of, like, the first two tracks are really good, and then it goes into the first three actually, and then 4, 5, and 6 are all kind of the same thing. But the standout track that I feel like could just be on its own, if you just wanted to try to pick one song out of this to embody the sound, is the actual. It's kind of a title track, and it's kind of not, because the album itself is the Veil of Imagination, but the song that I think is a standout track on this one is called The Tyranny of Imagination. And it starts off, like, if you listen to the actual album, there's a lead into it. So whenever you actually start the song, if you're just starting it by itself, it's a little jarring. But it starts off pretty heavy, and then it goes into what I would definitely say is like a very Opeth-y beginning stomper ass fucking groove of a riff. Holy shit. It just, the first time I heard it, I think I literally had a stank face on my face. I was at work too, and I was just like, I just stopped everything, and I was just like, oh my god, this is fucking dirty.
That's how you know a riff is good, when you had to stop what you're doing just to make the proper face and have the proper reaction to it.
Yeah.
Because it's that good.
Dude, it stopped me dead in my tracks. It was fucking amazing. So yeah, that's probably the standout track to me. And then the album ends, and it's not like, that is the apex album to me. And then the last song just kind of lets you down, or not, I mean, not lets you down, but it kind of cradles you back into like a normal state from that fucking banger of a track that just played. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you like Opeth, obviously we've mentioned them a lot, and not new Opeth, obviously, because that's kind of a different beast. Although it is also good, but this is definitely drawing on the prog death side of things from Opeth. But if you like, folk tinged metal in any way, this might grab your attention. But it is very progressive. It's got clean vocals. It's got dirty vocals, both done by the same guy, by the way. And he actually did change up his vocal style on this one. His vocals, his growls on the last album were more forward placed, and now they're kind of more back placed and down a bit. So I think I prefer the dirty vocals on this album more. than the last one, although they're both very good. But yeah, this album cannot get enough praise, I guess. It's going to be showing up again at the end of the year on a lot of lists. It's probably mine as well. So you're bound to hear more of it.
Yeah, that's big talk on this album. That's big talk.
Big buzz.
You got another one for us?
Do you want me to do that one? I was going to do those two. So why don't you do... What are we going to do, Nile or...
I can do now.
Yeah,
now.
do now.
Yeah. Okay, so newsflash, but if you've checked any review sites or paid any attention at all to any information about the new Nile album, you know that it's actually pretty surprisingly good. I think it's kind of like when Deicide put out their new album. What was that? Last year? It was
sounds right.
very surprisingly good. Nile, I would say, is an even bigger surprise because after they got rid of old Dallas Toller Wade, who had been in the band since '97, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a change that we've never seen in the band. How is this going to sound? And of course, you know how every band does. They talk big about their next album, you know, on social media and say,
it's going to be the heaviest album.
This is going to be the best one yet. This is our best work. And while it's definitely not Niall's best work, it's their best work, I would say, yeah, probably, honestly, since Annihilation of the Wicked.
That's big talk, too. Shit.
And I actually like Those Whom the Gods Detest, and so What Should Not Be Unearthed is good and bad. It's got, you know, highs and lows in it. But this new one, which I haven't even said the name yet, Vile Neurotic Rites, they come storming out of the gate. Like, we have like a little bit of a intro in the first track, and then it's just a million miles an hour. Nile is back at full speed. And they're back with the title track, or the names of the songs, too. The second song is called The Oxford Handbook of Savage Genocidal Warfare. That is a super fast song. That's the one I sent you the other day. I don't know if you played it. Where they come in just shredding super fast.
Yeah. It is now fast, for sure.
And one thing I started to realize as I got probably halfway through this album, I'm like, wait a minute. Nile has pretty much totally ditched the brutal death metal sound, because they've definitely had like a brutal death slash tech death thing going on a lot of their albums. This one, they're just basically about as heavy as like any old death metal right now. They're definitely not in the brutal territory anymore. But that's okay, because where they, are not as brutal anymore, their songwriting is off the charts on this album.
Sometimes that's what really matters, man.
I thought for sure that I was going to get bored, probably, if we're doing good by the 3/4 mark in the album. And I never got bored all the way through. And this album ends with an 8-minute track and an almost 7-minute track.
Jesus.
With just enough diversity throughout the tracks. We've got, they slow it down, they bring in some acoustic parts. They brought back a lot of the Egyptian stuff, where they hadn't been using it as much on some of their other albums.
Yeah, they kind of stepped away from that for a little while.
So they brought that back. There's a lot going on this album. And I would say for now, it's already a mid-tier Nile album with potential to go up. So
could be a grower.
Yeah. Big. I don't think I'm going to think I don't think it's going to get more boring to me over time. I think it's going to stick around.
Yeah. Staying power is a definite quality that you can measure.
Yeah.
I've had albums that I could listen to and be like, that is a damn good album, but then I just never want to come back to it for any reason, And that's a real shame.
And sometimes you kind of know when you hear it too. You're like, I'm enjoying this now, but I'm may not listen to this a whole lot.
Yeah, I guess that's somewhat typical whenever it's a sound that you can maybe draw on from a different band to get the scratch the itch or whatever.
Yeah, like it's hard for me to find a death metal band who really gets that kind of staying power anymore.
Same.
But I was already a fan of Nile, and this album's really good, so I think it's gonna have some staying power, just like the Deicide album had whenever that came out for me.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Nile has, even when my old band was fucking jerking their dicks off to fucking Annihilation of the Wicked, like, Jesus Christ, like, there just could not be enough praise for Nile. I liked it and I recognized that it was good, but this sonically never hit me in a very powerful way.
It's a great album.
I mean, it's good. It's damn good, but it's just not one of those bands that I've ever been like, yeah, fuck yeah, this is so fucking good, and just come back to it. It's just never been memorable for me. I don't know why. It's just not.
It's different taste.
Perhaps I'll figure it out on this one and try to listen to it some more. I think I've only been halfway through it once or something.
Get to those longer songs at the end. Oh, by the way, there's a song on there called Snake Pit Mating Frenzy, I believe is what it's called.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
What is that?
You, Nile is back with the song titles, man.
All right. So we ready to move on?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so I got a duo here, I suppose, and they kind of maybe fill the same sound space to a degree. The first one I'm going to cover is Second to Sun. Album just came out November 7th, so we're actually in our, supposed release range for this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
As was the last thing that I covered. It was like literally the first of the month. This, and I think I had said this exact same thing when I sent it to you, is some heavy, dense ass shit. Like, just, it's like going through the muck.
Yeah.
And it's definitely like a wall of sound, death metal, blackened death metal, maybe
I was gonna
just
say,
extreme metal.
the vocals are very black metal.
Yeah, so I feel like it's definitely blackened, or if you actually just want to call it black metal, I don't know, man. It's what a lot of bands do is they just kind of throw a bunch of different shit in there. I like to just call something like that extreme metal.
Yeah.
It covers the bases. Like, kind of like Behemoth, whenever they're going all over the place and not really directing their sound, because they can sound totally one way or the other if they choose to.
Yep.
Or a lot like that fucking offshoot of Behemoth band that I showed you called Vasanya. Like, they're just like, hey, we just want to be heavy. We'll have different parts that sound like black metal or fucking death metal, but we're just gonna be fucking heavy and have breakdowns and fucking heavy ass shit all along the way.
When you said like, would you call it rip-off band?
What? Rip-off band?
No. You didn't use the word rip-off, but like you said they were similar to Behemoth in some way.
Yeah. Vasanya?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what was the word you used?
I don't know. It's an offshoot band. It's the
offshoot band.
Yeah.
I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say Belphegor.
Oh, Jesus. That's a whole different fucking... Good Lord. That guy is crazy as fuck. Always has some interesting news surrounding that band.
I just think they're always a step behind Behemoth.
That's probably fairly accurate. Although I think they've actually had better quality records than Behemoth at times. Just depends on which album is out that particular year.
They're good, too. I just think they're just not quite as good as Behemoth. That's all I'm saying.
But anyways, back to the band at hand is Second to Sun with the album Legacy. This isn't the first time I've heard of them. I actually saw them come up on my release radar on Spotify. And it's a band I've already followed. So I was like, all right, well, let's fucking check this out. And it really did actually surprise me. It kind of has a good diversity of sounds. It definitely has some kind of atmospheric, instrumental, mood-building tracks. It's got a little intro to it. And a little, like, mid-album lull, instrumental, mood-building track that kind of resets you. But I think the last album that came up on my feed was called The Walk. that looks very familiar to me. And it was kind of like, at that point, I kind of put them on the, I'm going to keep these guys on the radar and see what they come out with next to see if it's good.
Yeah.
And they definitely took a step up. Definitely. Although now with this album release, they really kind of got on my thoughts, and I kind of started backtracking through the discography, and they have just a solid discography. It's all heavy as fuck and gets your fucking head banging. And that's kind of hard for me to do nowadays. I don't feel like I get that much energy from a lot of stuff, so I was very impressed. So yeah, their whole back catalog is good, but this new album is definitely something to note on the, like I said, kind of extreme metal, wall of sound, blackened death metal. I don't know, man. We have too much subgenre shit going on nowadays. I don't know what to call them. So hopefully all of our meandering bullshit kind of leads you to what you think they should sound like.
Okay, see, I'm not going to say that I called this like I'm some kind of psychic, but I did, well, I will say that I called it, but I'm not the only one who called it. A lot of people saw this coming, where, I'd say probably 5 years ago, I was like, I see a lot of the bands who are starting to get popular, especially in the underground, all have one thing in common, is that they're mixing a lot of subgenres together.
Yeah.
And I've noticed with most of the bands that you've presented and some that I have throughout, the last episode and this one, is that they all have that in common as well, is that they have a lot going on. You kind of just have to say, all right, at the base, they're a thrash band, but they've also got progressive elements and black elements and, just to get, help people understand all the things that are going on in these bands. So
you're not wrong.
It makes for some really good metal when they start mixing a whole lot of things in there.
Yeah, I really love it. I can jam on like a core sound, but damn, yeah, whenever you can hit me with like a bunch of different stuff in the same song, I'm gonna and make it cohesive. Yeah. You got me. Like I'm eating out of the palm of your hand at that point.
Or in Wilderun's case, it doesn't even have to be cohesive.
That's true. Just well constructed.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't have to have a logical beginning and end. But yeah, so anyways. Next up on the list is maybe a more straightforward sound. It is, I would just call it symphonic death metal. I'm not sure. I mean, you saw these guys when they played.
I did.
How were they?
They were good.
Nice. I did not make it. That was a Suffocation, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, rip to me. I was not feeling it that night. But yeah, it was funny because I just found this album and sent it to Justin, and he was like, "Oh, hey, yeah, and they're playing tonight." I was like, "Fuck."
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're a symphonic. Definitely have a very heavy draw on the symphonic side of things.
Did you say the name of the band?
No, or maybe I did. Necronomicon. And the album, I am very guilty of misreading this one as anus, but it is Unus.
Because it looks like anus. U-N-U-S.
U-N-U-S. Yeah, so I would definitely say for fans of, Dark Funeral, Demon Gear, Behemoth, anything that's, Septic Flesh, God, just the wide variety of very well done, not gimmicky as fuck, symphonic stuff.
Maybe like Flesh God Apocalypse as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. If I'm not mistaken, one of the last two bands I just talked about was from Italy. So I'm not sure which one it is off the top of my head. These are both fairly new bands to me. Let's see. Yeah, no, it was the last one. That was from Italy. Second to Sun.
Second to Sun.
Doesn't actually say on Spotify where they are from, but hey, whatever. Oh, no, shit. There is more on here as well. Looks like they've been going on for quite some time. Yeah, I'm not finding it on here. Not jumping out at me. Looks like they have members and recordings and been part of, you know, labels that are all over the place, and a lot of interesting lineup people that have worked on different projects and different bands that you might know of. You know, Merciful Fate and Cradle of Filth are both on here. So yeah, symphonic shit. I mean, when it's well done, I definitely fucking love it, and this is something that I can promote with not even a second guess.
I hate to fact check you, but
No.
Second to Sun is actually from Russia.
Fuck. Okay. Well, it wasn't that one then. Maybe I was thinking of something else. Look up this band. Maybe it's this band. I don't know. I listen to too much new music, man.
It's hard to keep up with where all of it's coming from, huh?
Definitely. Most definitely. Well, that's interesting, though. Fucking Second to Sun, Russia. Maybe that makes kind of sense for the sound that they produce, as compared to other bands that I know of that are from that area, the Eastern European stuff. Anyways, my bad on that one. I can't get it all right all the time, I suppose.
Well, that's why we fact check each other.
That's right.
Necronomicon is from Canada.
Okay, that's what I saw on there too, but I wasn't sure. It didn't really say from Canada.
And they've been around since '88.
Yeah, a long time. Like I said, they've had some different lineup changes, it looks like, that have some rather successful people in the industry. So yeah. I think that takes care of my new releases for Stragglers from October and the first half of November.
So, quick rundown. What did we cover? New albums from who? Necronomicon, Second to Sun, Nile, Wilderun, Silver Tomb, and
We Lost the Sea.
And We Lost the Sea.
That was from October, but...
So that's all good stuff. You should check all of that out.
You know, we should probably start putting like links to each one of the things that we cover in a description somewhere.
We should.
That way you can just kind of stop listening to us and just go listen to the fucking music, you know?
Exactly. Make it easy on the people to get to it. We could have an official playlist for the podcast and everything that we talk about included in there.
Fuck yeah.
If it's on Spotify.
Yeah, that'll be an easy thing. We'll get that going for y'all.
Good new things coming from the show. We have plans to make this better. We promise.
Absolutely. And coming up next for our next podcast, we're definitely going to have cattle decapitation.
Yes, that is definitely a highly anticipated album for both of us.
Yeah, so we might actually have it out the very beginning of December, because that's going to come out on like the 28th or something like that, and we're going to need at least a day or two to kind of sit with it and get our fucking asses spanked by the masters.
Spanked and defiled.
Yeah, the singles they've released are just fucking fire. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure we'll get another one probably like a week before the album comes out.
Yep. And we're gonna see them shortly before the album comes out.
With Atheist and Full of Hell.
Dude, Atheist. I cannot believe I'm gonna see Atheist in my lifetime.
That's gonna be a wild show.
Unbelievable. Cannot wait. But yeah, we'll also have other things that half the stuff I talked about I didn't even know was coming out. So we'll see what pops up.
Yep. That, and we always have resources to find albums. I'll just get on Metallum like I did to prepare for this episode and just see what's come out and just pick something random that I think sounds interesting.
Sometimes
that's exactly how I found Silver Tomb. So, are we ready for the discography run of the episode?
Changing gears.
Alrighty. So, back in 1996, a little band formed in Germany called Orden Ogan. Now, it would be a few years before they were able to release a full-length album. 2004. January 24th, 2004, we got Testimonium AD. And Neil, you just went on this discography run with me a little bit. you didn't get to hear full songs most of the time, but you pretty much heard a lot of the different sounds that this band had to offer.
Yep.
And on this first album, I would say the difference because as we'll get into it, the difference between the first and second album and their sound is just very different.
Night and fucking day.
Yeah.
Really.
So, what would you say that you heard on that first album that makes it different from the second one? Then it just never sounds like that again. Like it's the folk, right? There's more folk on the first album.
Definitely. It doesn't try to really do anything but really establish one sound, and it does it beautifully. But yeah, the very folky elements, not quite as heavy.
Yeah.
Just kind of getting you in a feeling, getting in a groove, and then just working it the whole fucking album.
There's definitely parts of this album that are heavy and have, maybe not chugging guitars, but at least some fast riffs and some signs of what was to come. Because on this album, it doesn't really get super fast or aggressive, at least not for long.
Yeah.
They've got lots of longer songs on the first album as well. In fact, most songs are like 5.5 minutes or longer. Let's run through some tracks real quick. And sadly, this album is not on Spotify, so when I make the Orden Ogan Essentials playlist, I won't be able to include any tracks from it. But I am going to point out the ones that would be on there, because you can go listen to them on YouTube. So the album opens with the title track / Eternal Ocean. They kind of just, one fades into the next. Testimony Made fades into Eternal Ocean. And we get this like angelic, just high opera sounding singers in the background. It's the production. It's lower quality production on this album than what was to come.
Definitely.
This came out, like I said, in 2004, but it sounds maybe even older than that, honestly. It's fairly low quality production, but I don't hate it, honestly.
No, it gives it a little bit of a character, to be honest.
It just, honestly, I think it does it a favor in sounding like what I think this band, if they had put out an album in the year that they formed in 96, I think it would have had production like this. So, I don't know. Weirdly enough, it kind of works, even though it's not that great of a production, honestly. You have to be able to get behind that, too, to enjoy that. But then, after the angelic intro, like I said, of the title track, Testimony Made, it gets into Eternal Ocean, just kind of fades into it pretty nicely, and the band gets heavier, and you see that immediately right off the bat that we're going to be getting a lot of different sounds from this band. The next song that I wanted to talk about was Angel's War. This is a more like traditional heavy metal / power metal song, I would say, but then also you realize that there's flute in this band as well in this song. So it's like, okay, well now we just, throw more different sounds in the list already of things that we've heard. And funny enough, we'll be hearing this song again later, and I'm not really sure why, but I'll bring it up whenever we get there. The next, so by the way, that opening Testimony Made in Eternal Ocean definitely would be playlist. That is, ooh man, one of my top 3 songs from this album. Moods introduces, or maybe there's a little bit of it in a previous track, but really Moods is the one that introduces like their Spanish guitar sound. And it immediately, like when I say that, I think most people get a sound in their mind. They use it very well, and it's just another thing that they throw into the mix and that will be sticking around for the majority of their discography. Pretty much all of it.
Yeah.
But it's a little more common here on these first albums. Some of these song titles, man. Why You Id Ant My.
What?
all I had to say about this song is that when I was listening to it, I was like, this is a better version of Dream Theater.
You know what's funny is you've said that about a fair few different bands. It's like this is like as if Dream Theater went in this direction and was better.
Yeah, because it's almost like after Dream Theater came out and was definitely influential, a lot of other bands decided to, take some of their sound and do it. And most of them did it better because Dream Theater, to me, just isn't that good.
Overrated.
Yeah.
Definitely. Sorry.
Yeah. The album closes on The Step Away, which, funny enough, is the shortest song on the album, unless you count the intro, which is just an intro. So of the songs that are actually songs, they decided to end with the shortest one on the whole album. But it makes a little more sense when after you listen to it. Because if you think about it, the song is kind of just ends up being an outro to the album instead of actually like a song. Now, it is a song, don't get me wrong, but it kind of feels that way when you listen to the album as a whole package. You can listen to this by itself, and I do actually like this song by itself. I forgot to put a check, but it would definitely make the playlist for me. And throughout this album, what you've noticed about the vocals is that he really prefers very like power metal, operatic vocals. And while this album is not like full on power metal all the time, that's the one constant that makes it power metal is the vocals. And that will be a constant for this whole band's discography.
Absolutely.
Because the singer is a consistent member all the way through. Singer slash rhythm guitarist. And you know what? Would you mind pulling up Metallum so I can get people's names? Because I forgot to have that ready.
Absolutely.
So that is...
Sebastian? That it?
So this is the latest album.
Oh. He's on here, right?
He is, yeah.
Vocals, guitars, keyboard.
Sebastian Sieb Leverman. That's the singer slash rhythm guitarist. He also plays keyboards whenever we get into that.
For this particular lineup.
So the first album has one guitarist who is not on any of their other material. In fact, on Encyclopedia Metallum, the only thing he's credited with is writing guitar on this album.
That's it.
Yep.
That's all he did.
That was Sebastian Leverman.
No. That's the lead singer. Is it not Stefan Tezerazu Manarin?
No.
No, vocals additional. Let's see here. Nope. That's it. That's all he did.
Oh, that's the guy. You're right. Stefan Manarin.
Yeah. Sebastian is the lead singer that is tried and true.
You guys will have to forgive me on these names. They're very hard to remember. And this band has 6 albums that, to be honest with you, and I wanted to point this out as well, the point of this segment of the show is not always going to be, or I should say the way I prepare for it is I don't always pick a band who is somebody that I know well. In this case, I went and found a particular sound that I wanted to explore more of. I don't think I know enough power metal. In fact, I know that I don't. So, I decided to go to a band that I do know, Blind Guardian, and open their related artists on Metallum. This was one of the bands, and they sounded interesting. So, I decided to click on them, and pretty much all of their albums were highly rated. So I'm like, okay, this seems pretty promising. And boom, that's how you get this part of the episode. So, yeah, this was 6 albums that were brand new to me as well. So, I tried to get, as much listening time on the albums as possible, and I didn't get to prepare as much with the members and the background on them and stuff like that. So this episode will be mostly more of, more about the music, in this case.
You seen this?
What?
3 of the members on this lineup are named Sebastian.
Wow.
The bassist, the drummer, and then that vocal, guitar, keyboard guy are all named Sebastian.
How do you like that? I'm pretty sure that's not the case on the next album.
I mean, you have too many. You gotta let some go.
Yeah.
I'm the Sebastian in this band, okay?
Yeah. 3 Sebastians in the band. Good lord.
That's just amazing.
So with the first album in the books, finally, after being a band for 8 years, and finally getting their first album out. Side note, I did see that the singer was 15 whenever they started this band.
15.
Starting out young.
Jesus.
And now you know what? I'm gonna save that for later. I got another point about him, but we'll get there. So the second album, Veil, comes out February 22nd, 2008.
4 years.
Can you pull the track listing back up? Yeah.
4 years, man.
So 4 more years for the sophomore album. And you'll notice that it's 13 tracks with a actually hidden bonus track at the end. And that's quite a few more than the last album. Pretty sure the last album only has 7 tracks, one of them being the intro. So there was, just looking at that alone, there was an obvious shift in what the band was going to sound like on this album. It starts out with Graves Bay, another instrumental, just intro. Not anything like the first one that they did on the last album, though, Testimonium AD. And then goes into To New Shores of Sadness. This is a really good song. Right off the bat, we see at 6.5 minutes that they're not done with the long songs. They're not giving up on that. And that's going to be something you notice throughout their discography is they consistently will do long songs throughout all of the albums. And then I got kind of worried when I was doing this discography run, because this album started to hit like a lull kind of quickly. Winds of Veil and Farewell were both just meh. Reality Lost was interesting, but still not really a great track. There was some very prominent keyboard in this song, as well as what I really thought was like a metalcore riff, honestly. You heard a lot of that when we were listening to it. Actually, songs throughout the discography.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, they just throw something in there that sounds like it could be an As I Lay Dying riff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is one of the first examples of that with the band, I would say, is in Reality Lost. But even, like I said, just doing several different things, if you don't execute it well, you don't get bonus points just for doing different things. It still has to be a good song. And one thing that I would say is going to start, it already becomes a problem to me, is some generic choruses where this band does a lot of choruses that sound the same. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, and some are better than others. But there's definitely a go-to chorus for Orden Ogan. Something Pretending is the next time that I liked a song on this album, which is track 8. So we went a while without anything making the playlist. However, this is another, not super long, but almost 6-minute song. And I noticed that a lot of my favorite songs by this band are the longer ones, honestly. It's something that they do well, I think. They know how to write a good long song. And at the end, I can't remember what the riff sounds like off the top of my head, but there's one really standout riff that they had used earlier in the song. They use it at the end and they go out on it.
Nice.
It's just a really good decision. So Something Pretending definitely makes the playlist for Orden Ogan. The Lord of the Flies, actually, I thought was kind of grungy sounding on a lot of parts. Very, very interesting. They have a lot of ballads. There's usually about one, sometimes two per album. And If You Do Right is the ballad of this album. Finally, we get to A Friend of Mine. This is kind of a nu metal song, honestly. I know you'll probably remember that really like nu metal. He sounded like Disturbed.
Yeah, I said Disturbed, and then you said Mudvayne, and I had to shut that down real quick. I was like, oh, don't bring Mudvayne into this. They're one of my favorite bands of all time.
I think you're in denial. Because it was a good riff. So I think it was a compliment.
Yeah, the riff for sure, but the drums and the bass were not on the level of Mudvayne.
Fair enough.
Because those two, they run that band.
That is true. However, I did like the drums on this album as well, on Veil. But because most of what like I said, the knock on this album is kind of the generic choruses. But all in all, Veil has had good songs, and songs that were just barely not going to make the playlist. They're still decent songs. So I do like this album, I would say, pretty much most of the way through, with just some songs standing out more than others. And then we get The Candlelights, which is technically the last song on the album. There's also a hidden bonus track called Green Man. But Candlelights, or The Candlelights, is just a completely different change of pace from the rest of the album. It slows it down, and it's interesting that they keep choosing these really much slower, different sounding songs from the rest of the album to go out on. But as we're going to see, that ends up being a prominent theme of this band.
Yeah, it's like they like to go out on a somber note.
Yeah. And some of them work really well. Some of them don't.
Yeah.
But
it's like some artists like to do that. You know, Metallica's a huge one for having kind of a format.
Yeah.
You know, there's always that instrumental song, kind of thing.
Yeah.
They have their traditions, I suppose.
Yeah. Kind of weird how some bands have traditions like that and then some don't, you know. I would say most don't.
Yep. It kind of takes a lot of balls to try to write albums in the same structure because you got to stick to it at that point. So if you're working on a sound that doesn't quite fit, you could have a real big problem on your hands. So, all right. Next
2 years later,
Yep.
the third album, East on Hope, comes out January 22nd, 2010. So now a band who formed in 1996 is now only on their third album in 2010. It's safe to say that this band kind of moves at a slow pace, but it's starting to pick up because this is only 2 years removed from the last album. Seems like they're actually starting to try to do this maybe as a career or at least take the band more seriously, you know. I'm not sure, not trying to say that they weren't taking the band seriously before, but the pace at which the material comes out definitely speeds up from this point on, which is a good thing because, well, we'll get there. Let's talk about East on Hope. Really, I'm just gonna skip to the fifth song, Welcome Liberty, because the first 4 tracks is kind of what I've come to expect from this band, which is hard to say that you expect anything from this band. But these first 4 songs, as well as the instrumental is just, it's their typical intro to the album. But Nobody Leaves, Goodbye, the title track East on Hope, and then Rise and Ruin. So I guess the first 3 tracks in the intro. They just didn't stick with me, honestly. And I would say at this point, when I was doing this preparation for this episode, I was like, oh shit, am I going to end up going through all 6 of these albums and suddenly, the band just tapered off and just turned out to not be as good as these reviews are saying online.
Some bands do that, man.
I-
They write a solid gold record and they can just never do it again.
Yeah. I started to worry that this band's first album was going to be the only thing that I really thoroughly enjoyed all the way through. We get to Welcome Liberty, like I said, on this album. And this one starts pretty heavy. It gets slower, and then it gets heavy again. It kind of picks up the quality of the album a little bit. It's still not a playlist song, I would say. But when I heard it, I was like, okay, maybe this is going to get better. And then it kind of didn't. Requiem is a folk ballad, I would say. This is kind of the ballad. It's not a ballad all the way through, but this is the closest this album has to a ballad. We get to We Are Pirates, and this is just not a good song. I don't like this song.
I mean, it's a song called We Are Pirates.
It's too long. It's just kind of generic power metal and heavy metal for the most part. Yeah, it's too long. I just didn't enjoy it. And all these tracks that I've skipped in between for this album, I don't know. East on Hope just didn't blow me away. If you enjoy a lot of the other songs that you're going to end up hearing throughout this band's discography, if you go and listen to them, I think if you listen all the way through like I did, you're going to agree that this is kind of the low point in the band's discography. It's just not as good as really any of the other albums. There is some fun moments on it. Still some, good things about it. But it's my least favorite, to be honest with you. And, like you're seeing here on the reviews, Neil's looking at the reviews on Encyclopedia Metallum. There's people who disagree with me. It's rocking a pretty good average on the website. But like that guy, it says they're 68%. That's probably the review that I would agree with the most there. That seems like a somewhat fair, yet maybe a little bit high score. But everyone else rates it higher.
Yeah, it seems like some of the people do agree with you in the sense that it's kind of a lull, maybe a little bit of a backpedal. But yeah, man, I guess if you like the sound, you like the sound.
However, if this album had to come out in order for us to get what was to come, then I would definitely say it's worth it. Like I said, the pace at which they put out albums picks up from 2 albums back now. Because just 2 years after this, October 26, 2012, we got To the End. And boy howdy, does this album rule. It's a huge jump in quality to me over the previous one. And here's the best way I can put it. Before I get into talking about all the tracks on this album, I want to kind of set up the sound for you in your head, since I can't play song clips because we're not that prepared yet.
We're getting there.
A similar sound for a lot of what had been on the previous albums for this band. Like on the first one, I would say there was definitely some obvious Opeth influences, Well, none of the previous albums really had what I would say any influence from Mr. Devin Townsend. However, I can definitely hear some of that on To the End. And it's a nice addition to this band's music. Like I said, they pretty much don't ever stop doing new things throughout their discography. So let's get into some of these tracks. And I'm going to go through some of these kind of quick, but because there's so many to talk about on this album. However, this is not their best album, but yeah, you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go through it. So, as usual, there's an opening instrumental. It's good. Listen to it if you're going to do the whole album through. To the End. Boy, howdy. Obvious when this track starts of what I'm talking about when I say some Devin Townsend influence. This shit is fast and it's heavy. We hear, I would say, some thrash riffs from time to time on this album. There's a lot going on. But I think this is the point when this band is getting really good at using all these different sounds that they like to use. The first opening track, like I said, is fast and it's heavy and it's almost 6 minutes. We get The Things We Believe In, and this is not my favorite song on the album. That one's definitely a skipper. However, the drop in quality doesn't last long. Land of the Dead is a good song. There is an absolutely batshit insane guitar solo at the end of this song, and I thought it was the perfect way to end it. Playlist song, To the End, playlist song. We get to the Ice Kings, which is really ballady on a lot of parts, but I really like it as well. The chorus is amazing on this song. The Ice Kings, definitely a playlist song. Till the Stars Cry Out. It's really fast and shredding for about 4.5 minutes, and not really their best work throughout this part of the song. But then we get a really epic outro to the song that lasts for almost about 2 minutes, I would say. It's very slow to make its way out. Is the best way I can put it. I don't know if that one's a playlist song, but it is good. You alright, Neil?
Yeah, I'm alright. Sorry. Sneezing.
My co-host is dying over here.
Not dying yet.
He's allergic to power metal, apparently.
Yeah, that's about right.
It's a shame. You're so wrong. This shit is epic. I kept trying to make a case for this band the whole time he's sitting there, listening to me. Listening to parts of songs with me while I'm taking notes in preparation. And he just kept saying, I can hear that it's good, but, it's just not my thing. I heard that 50 fucking times throughout the night already.
What do you want from me, man? It's just what it is.
I tried my hardest with him.
I can attest to that. You did.
So, where are we at? This World of Ice. This is the best song on the album. That's all I'm going to say. It's not the longest song on the album, that's for sure. It's only 4:43, which for this band is on the shorter side. At least, it kind of used to be. But now it's becoming more normal. If you look at the tracks on this album, we've got 5 minutes, 5 seconds, 4:42, 4:54, 4:43. It's becoming a little more commonplace that we're dipping now into the lower 5-minute and upper 4-minute songs. Whereas before, it was more commonplace for songs to be about 6 minutes or longer. So we're seeing now the songs are starting to get a little shorter on this album. But yeah, This World of Ice. I don't even want to spoil it for you. I'm just going to tell you that it's the best song in the album. They go out on another very different song. They go out on a ballad on this one, Take This Light. It's okay, but this is not one of their ballady / less heavy outros that works as good as some other ones. Nah, not making the playlist. So, but To the End overall is a big jump in quality over the previous album.
It's like they found their footing a little bit.
Oh yeah, and if maybe you could say that they didn't fully find their footing on To the End, but they are close. The next album that comes out, Ravenhead. I think this is where this band is at their best. This is my favorite album from them, I would say. At least as it stands right now. And again, the song lengths are shorter on this one. We've got 424, 416, 502, 432, 506, you know.
There's one song in the low 6 minute range.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the only one.
Nothing in the 7-minute range, which I would have to fact check myself, but I believe is the first time on any of their albums that they didn't have a song that was at least 7 minutes. I'm going to go through some tracks now on Ravenhead, and they're bangers, one after the other. You heard earlier that this is kind of where they have now settled on how heavy they're going to be.
Yeah, it definitely took a turn up.
How heavy they still currently are. If the latest album is any indication on what that is.
This is the album that I was like, this is an At the Gates song.
Yeah. Those words came out of Neil's mouth at one point. This sounds like an At the Gates riff.
It really did.
So now we've got, and a lot of these sounds that I'm talking about, like I said, sometimes they only stick around for one part of one song. Maybe they come up once an album. Like I said, they're still, whether I mentioned it or not, most of these albums have had some kind of riff that sounded like a metalcore riff or a new metal riff. There's been a couple of occurrences of both of those. Ravenhead, if I didn't say, came out January 16th, 2015. We open with, as you guessed it, an instrumental. Just short, minute and a half, band titled track called Orden Ogan. That gets into the title track for the album, Ravenhead, which, is it? Yes, it is. The longest song on the album. Ravenhead has a very, epic power chorus. Fast shredding, and dare I say, it's a top 5 song in their whole discography.
Oh, damn.
This song was a sign of what was to come for the rest of the album. This was a good indication that we were about to be punched in the face repeatedly for the first time by this band, that they got heavier. Fever, which is actually an acronym, and I'm not sure what it stands for, but they have it listed out as an acronym here.
Maybe one day they'll hear us and be like, yo, this is what it stands for.
Yep. I would love that. Please tell us what this acronym stands for. Maybe we just need to read the lyrics. They're going to be like, just read the fucking lyrics. Because I didn't get to read lyrics as much either. As I usually would like to in preparation for albums. But it was just a lot of material that I was unfamiliar with, and
I mean, compared to last podcast band, the lyrics are a little bit of a departure.
Yes, much less mutilation and disgusting, revolting lyrics.
No songs about docking.
Nope. Broken. Yeah, it's quite a swing to go from Broken Hope to Orden Ogan, huh?
Yeah.
I wanted to do a big shift.
Showing
your diversity. Part of the show. Yes. To show that I'm going to talk about everything in metal with this discography part of the show. But the next track, Fever, I can basically say all the same things that I just said about Ravenhead. Epic chorus, fast shredding, top 5 song for this band. All the same things apply. We go to the lake. The lake has this really cool chugging riff that I liked in it. What another example of, like I said, kind of a metalcore thing. It's really good. I liked it quite a bit. Another playlist song. Evil Lies in Every Man. This was also a playlist song for me. This was also one of the longer ones on this one. 5 minutes, 45 seconds. So we've got now, 4 playlist songs already on this album, and we're only on track 5. So far, everything except just the intro. And sure, throw the intro in there with it as well. This, basically, almost this whole album is a playlist album. So far, halfway through it, it's obvious that this is their most consistent album yet. Deaf Among the Blind just doesn't slow down at all. Now, if you're following along and looking at the track listing, you'll notice I skipped a few songs there. Here at the End of the World and A Reason to Give. This is kind of the mid-album lull. They're still not bad songs, and if you're doing the album all the way through, I don't think they're skippers, but they're just not as good as all the other ones, and I really wanted to focus on the ones on this album that were really exceptionally good. And Deaf Among the Blind, I would say, is the last one of those songs. It's got this super epic power metal chorus where it shows that even though they got heavier, like I said, they have not abandoned the power metal. It's still there. There's still power metal riffs. It's still very much a part of the band. They close on Too Soon. It's a really slow building song. It's 3 minutes 51 seconds, and you can kind of combine it with the previous track. It's an instrumental in Grief and Chains. They kind of would combine nicely into one 6-minute song, roughly. And this Too Soon was the one where I said to you, don't you think this kind of sounds like Agalok?
Oh, yeah. But
you disagreed.
Yeah, I mean, Agalok does sprawl throughout some sounds, but I don't know. I guess I just didn't. It didn't click for me like that.
Yeah, not the. You know what? I don't even know how I'm gonna describe which part of Agalok it was that I was talking about.
It's hard to do that though,
yeah.
Because they really have a great sound. It's one of my favorite bands ever.
Yeah, it's a nice, decent finish for the album. All in all, like I said, Ravenhead is definitely my favorite album of theirs. It's the most consistent all the way through. And it definitely finally dethroned the first album as my favorite. Because the first album was still my favorite. To the End was a good one, but the first one, man. The first one and Ravenhead is definitely their two best. Now we get to present day, or maybe not present day, but just
their latest album.
Recently, not too long ago. 777 was the release of this album. July 7th, 2017. They released what is currently their latest album, Gunman. And for once, we don't start with an instrumental track, huh?
Crazy.
Weird. It's almost the craziest thing this band has done so far.
This album actually breaks a ton of traditions for them.
What else do you notice that it...
No instrumentals, and ends on a long-ass track.
Yeah. I noticed that too. It was probably the biggest jump in sound, or not jump, I would say, but the most different in sound from the previous album since the first to the second. Because like you said, a lot of those traditions were broken. However, this album is definitely still heavy. We still have quite a bit of heavy metal riffs, thrash metal riffs, and still with the power metal choruses. As you get into the first two tracks on this album, you probably will be thinking the same thing as me. What happened to those really good songs from the last album?
What the fuck, guys?
Gunmen and Fields of Sorrow. Dude, Fields of Sorrow is a bad song. It's the worst song since We Are Pirates or whatever that one was called from way back. That was a terrible song.
I mean, with that song title.
Yeah. The song is as bad as you think it is. Fields of Sorrow is bad as well. But holy shit, we go one more track in, Forlorn and Forsaken. And this literally might be my favorite song of theirs.
Interesting.
If not, it's a top 3 song. That chorus is so goddamn catchy. And they do it in so many different... Like, they do it, it's just like the band members singing. They do it with the full chorus. Which, by the way, we didn't even mention that. There's been a couple of albums, maybe just this one and the previous one, where apparently the label or the band or somebody hired a full chorus. Like, what would you...
That was like a 10-person chorus or some shit.
Yeah. Just to sing in these big epic choruses that this band is offering. Dude, there's like 12 people. It's a lot of people. And it just says that they're all choir singers.
Yeah. It's a lot of people.
And it makes for some really, really epic choruses. Especially when they do it well. They don't always pull it off and do it well. But on Forlorn and Forsaken, they definitely do. That's a top 3 song for me, for sure. And then we get another fantastic song, Vampire in Ghost Town. This is a slower song for them, I would say, to start off. Then it speeds up, and then we get this chugging riff. Another, like, metalcore, I would say. Maybe even just like a galloping riff. They're not afraid to do like a galloping riff on the guitar, and they're not afraid to make the kick pedal match it.
Yeah, that's the words Iron Maiden come out of my mouth as well. So.
Yep, for sure. And they do it on Vampire and Ghost Town. That's another great song. Probably a top 10 song, honestly. So it was very weird to start with these 2 songs that I don't really like, and then we get 2 absolute back-to-back bangers. And then we go into kind of a mid-album lull with this one. Come With Me to the Other Side is kind of meh. They featured this other singer who's named Liv Christine. She's done a little bit of other stuff, nothing too notable. But she's a nice addition, but it doesn't really save the song. It's still just kind of boring. Not really one of their more exciting tracks. Kind of the Orden Ogan you've already come to know, where at this point of the discography, you go, okay, you kind of have a baseline sound for the band. This song kind of is just that for the most part, plus some additional female vocals, but it doesn't save it from being kind of boring. Lower tier track, for sure. So we skip ahead to track 9. Honestly, we have to go to track 9 to get to another song that I really enjoyed. One Last Chance. It's kind of a medium pace song for these guys at this point, which is still kind of fast because they've been kind of fast for the last couple of albums. Lots of shredding, lots of fast double bass on some parts even. And then it spends the end of the song on just this guitar, like mostly by itself, just fading out for like the last couple of minutes. And it's really cool. I'm like, where was this diversity and interesting songwriting for like this majority of this half of the album? It's really disappointing. This album is so hit or miss with these songs. It's like they're either really good or just really boring, honestly. But there's quite a few still that make the playlist, and it's still, to me, an essential album in the discography to listen to. The closing track is Finis Corponat Opus. It's 8 minutes and 48 seconds, which, to my knowledge, I think is their longest song. This song kind of goes through pretty much everything, I would say. Maybe not everything, but quite a few of the different sounds. That big epic choir on the chorus is in this song. You've got fast shredding. I think you've got Spanish guitar in this one. There's quite a few different sounds in this song. It feels a little disjointed at times, and the power metal part of the singing can get a little boring, especially if you've been through a whole discography run of the band in like 2 days, which I did. I did more than one listen on all these albums.
Yikes.
So, yeah.
That's a lot of one band.
Yeah. I put in my preparation because I wanted to, at the very least, be very familiar with the music for you guys, so I could describe that as best as possible. You can get into the lyrics and stuff on your own if you decide that you like the band. I plan on doing that. And as it stands, Gunman is their latest album. Overall, most of this band's discography, or I would say probably half, is hit or miss. It's either really good or just kind of boring. You know, stuff you've already heard from them. Ravenhead is, and the first album were both kind of the exceptions, and definitely my top two albums for this band. Gunman's got some really good tracks, some also not so good tracks on it. And honestly, like I said, you can pretty much skip East on Hope for the most part. There's some decent songs on it, and maybe you'll like it. You know, you, the listener, will like it more than me when you listen to it. But if I'm talking about where to start with this band, I would go the first album and Ravenhead if you want to start with the real quality stuff, and then go from there. Neil, do you feel like I educated the people on this band at all?
Yeah, you educated me too.
Oh,
Because I had never even heard of this band before today.
I forgot I was gonna ask you, is what did you know about this band before I walked in your front door today?
Absolutely dick.
When I said I'm covering Orden Ogan, what did you think?
Like I said, I kind of heard maybe like some Nordic or whatever vibes from that. Like, I thought I was in for. I mean, they did have some folky stuff. And like, I guess the first album maybe kind of.
The first album mostly, huh?
Was like that is the name and sound that I would put together.
Yeah,
for sure. But then they went off onto a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So.
A whole different thing and a whole lot of different sounds to go with it. But for sure, especially after their first album, there's a definite base of power and heavy metal, and then they just kind of go from there. And will hit you with so many different things. I'm really glad that I found these guys and decided to cover them for this episode, because they've become one of my favorite power metal bands, honestly. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. Enjoyed hearing me rant about each album. And hopefully you find some stuff that you enjoy from this band as well. And that's pretty much going to do it for episode 2 of the Caesar and Sloth Metal Podcast. Neil, what do you have to say?
Not too much, man. Glad we actually got to episode 2.
I know, right? That's an accomplishment for us.
Absolutely. We've tried this a couple times, but here we are, making it work.
Yes. It's currently 12:45, and that's not in the middle of the day. That's late at night, and we both have to work tomorrow. So we're going to wrap this podcast up, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I'm in the process of getting us on all the social medias so that you will be able to follow us on those, and maybe we'll give little hints as to what you might be hearing on the next episode, and maybe some little side content. Just, hey, I thought this was interesting, but maybe you don't want to talk about it on the show.
Yeah.
Who knows? We'll be posting on there.
Yeah.
So
we got the ideas.
Yes, more and more is coming for the show. So
all right, signing off.
Have a good one.
See you next time, guys.